Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. It's our daily show for this week, live at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. GMT. We discuss everything to do with the NFT market, the crypto market, and how to ideally make some money online. We're live on X. We are live on YouTube, and I'm your host, Bchek. I'm joined by my legendary co-hosts, Legendary and S4MMY. Just a reminder, friends, before we get into the show, we do not know anything for sure. This show is not financial advice, though we talk many financial things. We don't know anything for sure. Please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Tuesday, the 12th of March. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
G to the M. I'm doing well, doing quite well.
Okay.
Excited for this week. In particular, excited to fly out to London tomorrow. Be
Oh,
back in beautiful Chelsea. Have our modern market meetup on the Thursday.
sir,
It's our third one, a second one
it
in
is.
London, third one in total. Time is fucking flying. I remember when the meetups were an idea that you brought up. It was like, is it too much of a lift? How will we set this up? Will we organize that? And now it's already number 3, and yeah, it's already March, almost halfway through March, almost through the first quarter of 2024. It's insane. There's no time to sleep and no time to chill and to reflect at all. At least that's how it feels for me.
I think everything that you're saying is I agree with. It's funny, but I'm also just cracking up in the comments at the same time because we've had comments both in the comments and in Discord just being like, can the UK, can Europe just obey daylight savings? Like, does it not even have daylight savings? Like, are we so archaic that we don't know how to organize ourselves around daylight savings? Obviously, people from the US who are just are not familiar with our new time slot, we've obviously had a little bit of trouble figuring out daylight savings. Not for us, because we do actually have it. My understanding is that the UK's daylight savings will come in at the end of this month. So, like, normally when this happened before, we had a 1 week gap between Eastern time and UK doing their daylight savings. So it was only 1 week where we were like off our timing. This time it's 2 weeks, I think, at least, if not. So we're going to do a little experiment where we're going to run at 8 a.m., which is the UK's like normal time, 12 p.m. GMT. But then next week, we're going to switch it up and go back to 7 a.m. Eastern time, and then we're just going to see. We're going to see what different slots people prefer. Obviously, we have a lot of listeners in Europe. We're all based in Europe, but we also have a lot of listeners on the East Coast. So we want to try and do what's best for everyone, but we're basically going to split it. 50% will be 8 a.m. Eastern time this week, 12 p.m. GMT. Then next week, we'll go 7 a.m. Eastern time, 11 a.m. GMT. Then hopefully we will be back 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. GMT. Go on, Legendary.
But the thing is, at least we in Europe manage as a continent, or as the European Union plus UK, to agree on if and when we do daylight savings. In the US, there's Arizona and Hawaii who don't do it. Arizona, again, there's an exception with the Navajo Nation doing it, and also 5 territories, American Samoa, Guam, Puerto Rico, US Virgin Islands, also not doing daylight savings. So at least we as the union managed to agree on a consistent approach to that. I don't take this American criticism on our way how we handle daylight savings.
That is fair. They have more states to kind of keep happy, try to gain consensus on. Though, Sammy, what are your thoughts? Have you been swayed by daylight savings? Have you been duped by it? I missed the first 15 minutes of my Thread Guy spaces in the evening yesterday, and someone tagged me to say, "Where are you?" And I was like, "What do you mean? It's 5:15?" And yeah, the show had been going for 15 minutes. I was completely lost. What's your feeling here, Sammy?
I did notice that as well. It came on, and I was like, "Why is that on an hour earlier?" I just didn't really register. But I think I'm more curious as to why Legendary knows all those little states. They're all different time zones. You've obviously done a lot of research, and I'm trying to work out how you found time to do that.
Well, Legendary is funny. In real life, doesn't everyone think you're American?
I don't think so. Like I do like to LARP as American, but I don't know. I had people thinking. I think Raj and a couple others at NFT Paris thought I'm from Canada. I don't
Oh,
know.
well, that's kind of the same, isn't it? I thought a lot of people thought you're American. I don't know why I know that and you don't, or why I'm convinced that that's true and you seem to be pushing back against it. Okay, that's fine. I'll just continue to think what I think about where other people think that you're from. Right. We have a full packed show again for you today. As always, we're going to get into everything to do with the NFT market, everything to do with crypto as well. And we're going to get into a bit of a discussion on it. But before we do that, let's get into the snapshot first. As always, it is pinned up top. If you find that it brings you some value, let's give it a like. Why not? Okay. Starting with the price action, we've got crypto fairly steady actually in the majors. Bitcoin up 1% at 71.9K. Damn, sounds funny to say that in words. 70 something K. ETH is flat at 4K. Solana hovering around $150. In terms of the headlines, we've got Bodoggos rising 30% to 9 Solana as Allnick continues virality with Dave Portnoy recognition. So Bodoggos are going crazy. Obviously, this is all to do with the NFT morning show cruise NFT collection, but also just Nick going crazy viral over and over again. And connected to that, you've got this Nick token just absolutely ripping as well. I don't know where it's got to at the moment. Number 2, Memeland launches Stakeland. I saw some positive stuff about it, some negative stuff about it too. Captain seemed to be down 17%. On no immediate unlocks of meme. Char from the Memeland team, this was a screenshot from the Discord, which Riggs tweeted, said that meme is for NFTs, is planned to unlock. We unlock it as we go to reward long-term holders and not folks who are buying it just for meme alone, but because they believe in the ecosystem. Definitely want to explore that a little bit more to see if we know anything more about that. And to be fair to the captains, like there's red across the board in the NFT market as well. We'll get into some of that price action in just a moment. Finally, Blast USDB increases yield from 5% to 15%. A key piece of information there provided by NFT Stats, who is with us up on stage. He said, baseline, Blast puts our USDB into MakerDAO, who historically paid 5% yield on DAI, a stable coin with a soft peg to USD value. Maker has now moved that to 15%, so Blast has followed suit. Interesting stuff there. Getting into some price action, we've got CryptoPunks at 50 ETH, Bored Apes down 11% at 14.5, Mutants down 18% at 2.2. That sounds crazy to say. DGod's down another 10% at 1.4, Captain's down 17% at 4.3, Azuki's down 4% at 3.9, Penguins holding steady-ish at 13.7, Mad Lads, the steadiest of all at 198 Solana, and the Nouns winning bid was at 4.9 ETH. Some top sales there. Interestingly, a Memeland MVP sold for 58.69 ETH. A Bored Ape Laser Eyes sold for 58 ETH. And a CryptoPunk V1 Alien sold for 29 ETH. I believe that CryptoPunk V1 Alien is the V1 version of the Alien CryptoPunk, which FaZe Banks traded for in a roughly a $3 million deal. So interesting to see that move too. Legendary, that is the price action. Those are the headlines. Anything catching your attention, catching your eye as things stand?
What made me really happy is the Nick pump on a personal level. I did throw in 10 Solana 2 days ago. The day after, it doubled up. I took out my initial investment, and now I have it pumped again, and I have 37 Solana in there. So that's like a nice little win trading the attention. Also like to see, I do like the V1 punks quite a lot. I don't know. I just the history of them kind of being an error that needed to be fixed, the contract that kind of needed to be redeployed is something I do sympathize with a lot, and I don't know if you like collect Pokemon cards and you look at misprints. I kind of like that origin story of the V1 punks. I had a V1 punk that I sold, but I'm always looking at them and seeing if there's like a nice entry level punk that I could just add to the collection and keep, because I like just the misprint thought of that. There's nobody like, perpetrating this narrative and like shilling them as aggressively as maybe they were shilled last cycle. So it's not about like a potential pump. It's a historical piece that I like with them. So I'm obviously quite happy when I see a bigger sale in the V1 collection happening.
That's interesting. I'd never thought about it from the misprint perspective. There's like certain versions, I don't know if people are familiar, but like there's certain versions of the Harry Potter book, like the first edition, with that very same thing, like with a misprint. And those end up being the most valuable because of that, like that unforeseen rarity. So that's pretty interesting perspective. I'd never thought about the V1 punks from that perspective. Okay. I want to get into all the market stuff in a bit. I do see with some people's hands raised. I want to ask a question first and actually pose two questions because it's something that's been on my mind before we get into the headlines. The first is from this tweet from Ansem, which I think is a fairly bullish tweet, but I want to pose a contrary position and just to hear people's thoughts because I think it's an important question to ask. So I don't know many people who disagree with this, but let's frame it like this. This is how Anson framed it. He said, in the 2017 bull market, retail were max bidding. In the 2021 bull market, Sailor and Company, it was like Sailor and Company versus evil curly hair man, greatest financial fraud since Enron and GBTC blow up. So that's what happened in 2021. He's trying to distinguish those two kind of bull markets from this one, where he's saying 2024 bull market, multiple BTC spot ETFs, multi-trillion assets under management, asset managers bidding, mainstream media, all turning giga bullish, and the criminals are in jail. Legendary, first question on this, and then I want to hear Sammy's thoughts on it too. First question on this, what do you think of this framing? Like, what's your response to it?
It's with most of Ansem's posts, there's like parts of it that I agree with and parts of it just simply humoristic.
Okay. Which parts?
I agree with obviously multiple BTC spot ETFs, the multi-trillion asset under management, asset managers bidding, mainstream media giga bullish. Not really. Maybe getting there, could be. Criminals in jail. Yeah, the 2021 criminals might be in jail, but you have the same situation in 2021 with the 2017 criminals being in jail by then.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like, we'll find some more criminals for sure.
Yeah, we find new criminals. That's something I never worry about in crypto, that there's new people coming up with sophisticated scams, trying to extract value. Eventually, some of them at least will end up in jail. So that's the part that I find amusing. But generally, I think it's an interesting framing, and to me, the main takeaway, obviously, is that what we spoke about on the show for like probably 100 times already, that we never had ETFs before, and that completely changes who can access the crypto market and who is accessing the crypto market in a way that could have a very long-term impact on investing behavior over the next decade. So that's the thing that I'm like personally really excited about, to see that play out.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I do agree with you on that perspective. The one thing that's been playing on my mind, though, maybe we'll go to Sammy first, circle back to Legendary on this as well, is the ETH ETF incoming. Now, I have read a lot of FUD on the timeline from the people who are supposed to be the most informed. For example, the same ETF reporters who covered a lot of the Bitcoin stuff, a lot of the people who are kind of reporting like, look, guys, this is basically over the line now. Fairly trustworthy from that perspective. I believe that they're operating in good faith. They've definitely expressed a far more lukewarm outlook for the ETH ETF. And I guess the question maybe to you, Sammy, first, and then I kind of want to hear everyone's perspective on this because I don't know concretely what I think about this yet, is like, what happened? Like, what probability are we thinking in terms of the ETH ETF passing? And in the event that it doesn't, like, is that significant? is that significantly bad for ETH? Is it bad for Solana too? Is Bitcoin completely unaffected? How are you thinking about that at the moment?
I don't necessarily think it's. I mean, I think it's going to get approved at some point. I don't know whether it's going to be in this May. Something that I saw yesterday was the FCA, so the UK regulator, approved exchange traded notes, which are effectively debt securities, and that's for both Bitcoin and ETH. So,
okay,
I mean, how I see that is it's almost like the internet bond they're kind of pushing through. So I think even though the US might not do it, there'll be other jurisdictions that could potentially push the ETH standpoint more than Bitcoin. I think that going back to the Ansem tweet as well, I just wanted to make a point on that. It feels like his overarching point is that move from retail into more institutional focus. And I speak to my family regularly to try and get like a gauge on where they're at.
What are they saying?
To be honest, well, my parents are like, that's cool that it's gone up. So when are you going to sell it? Because it's going to crash. So I do think that that's their perspective still. I don't think that giga bullish media stance has come through yet. And maybe that sentiment will shift. But yeah, I think there's a couple of points there that it just indicates kind of the direction that it's going. And I think it is pushing the more institutional direction at the moment. Whether retail will come back in, I'm not sure.
Do you know what? I think I actually completely agree with you on that kind of outsider's perspective. I think because it's so recent and because the crash was like so profound, and I wasn't here for the other ones before, so maybe it was a similar feeling. But because it was so recent that we were at highs and it crashed so aggressively down, and because there was all the fraud and the criminal activity at the same time, I just think that they don't think that that's not going to happen again. Like they're just thinking, okay, cool, well, it's got there now. And it's like, okay, but we're not going to get involved in that type of thing. That's my perspective from those casual conversations too. That's interesting to hear. Legendary, same question to you though on the ETH ETF. I think people do have one eye on that, and when you look at the kind of charts, ETH is probably, I don't want to say this without knowing, so I'm going to check whilst you're talking. I think ETH has been outperforming Bitcoin for a little bit now, at the start of this year at least. What's your thoughts on the potential effect of an ETF not going to plan for ETH? What are your thoughts?
It's a very, very good question. I think taking one step back, like if you look at the overall odds that are being discussed, whether it's Eric Balkunas or whether it's Polymarket, they see a 35% chance of an approval in May.
Interesting.
I think I also made a bet on Polymarket. I did bet on yes, because I just like the odds of that. The thing is, even if it's going to be denied in May, I don't think that anyone in the industry would realistically think that's like a definitive forever no. It's like more it's going to take more time than we expected, and we hope to get the thing done by May, but that wasn't the case. And I think that the market would react to that in the sense that there might be a dip in ETH. I think, I mean, obviously, ceteris paribus, that everything else stays the same and the buying pressure on BTC continues, and the price action on BTC continues or at least sustains. I don't think that denial in May would have like a long-term negative impact on ETH. I do think there might be a correction, but obviously that is me just, speculating from gut feeling and not having anything of, scientific value to add to that. It's just my instinct on that.
Completely fair enough. Very fair enough. I'm not sure where I stand on it at the moment. The thing that I would like to do is take a look, because obviously Bitcoin's been through this cycle a little bit more, getting constantly delayed. And so I'd probably want to check to see where we are. But I kind of, just based on the conversation we're having here, I kind of lean towards this idea as well, that like in this uptrend of a market, it feels like people want to bid. Like people don't like, yes, there could be a correction, but my instinct as well is that people are going to bid this stuff up. And if Bitcoin's going to keep moving up, I don't know. I'm reluctant to think that ETH would lag to such a huge extent. Would love to hear from NFT Stats as well on this in a second, to see if there's like a different perspective coming out of the US on the ETH ETF. But let's go to Jack first with his hand raised. What are your thoughts on the ETH ETF, Jack? Because I think that's definitely one of the big catalysts coming up.
Yeah, it's look, I think I've been very transparent on this show. I am not the smartest guy in the room or any room, even when I'm alone. And I think what I would say is, yes, this narrative in a bull market just doesn't hold. I do not think you can look at Bitcoin and the history of, you know, the postponements of their ETF in a bear market and say that's going to transpire. I completely agree there. I also think that there's other narratives at play. For example, the OpCat, like basically this installation of these like 15 line of code onto Bitcoin that will potentially allow for like smart contracts and stuff, which then becomes like a little bit more competitive with Bitcoin's other proposition against ETH. So I think there's a couple of narratives that I probably sit on a line of, yes, I could see some short-term pain regardless for ETH if the ETF does get denied, because then it will basically snowball into a bunch of other narratives that could come along at the same time. However, long term, I think it was Bread came on the show a couple of weeks ago, or might even have been a week ago, might have been a day ago. This space is moving so fast that
Bread was on the show yesterday, Jack.
Yeah, but it was that's not the conversation I'm talking about.
Okay.
It was like a week ago, I think, where he talked about Ethereum and like the fact that, you know, devs have been building on this for years, and the one thing that you can't speed up is build time.
Yes,
and
I like that.
And ETH is just 100% in terms of how well it's been built out, the quality of development that has gone on within that infrastructure over the long term is like undoubtedly to me going to see through as it becomes either the number two or it comes competitive with Bitcoin itself. It's just the short term. Yes, I could see some short term pain because of the narratives that we've just been speaking about.
Very fair enough. I actually like that take. Shout out to Brad providing like some really interesting frameworks for how to think about these things. He's in the audience again. Appreciate him for joining us as often as he does. Okay, I really like that take. Let's go to NFT stats. Sam, if he's available, then close it out with Tiro on this topic before we hit the headlines. Sam, welcome to the stage. What are you hearing on stateside? Should we be concerned for the ETH ETF? How are you thinking about it?
I like having, I don't have a lot of insight into whether or not it is going to happen, or what the risks are. I think this, I always think in crypto, the perfect cycle, like the perfect setup is mystery and anticipation, because none of these assets have like fundamental value. And so so the prices pump when there is FOMO, when there's questions, when there's uncertainty, when something might be coming up. We've seen in Bitcoin that, you know, when something fundamentally changes and, you know, billions and billions of new dollars have access to your asset, that also causes pumps. But it's not every day we get something like that. So I don't know. I think like the current setup right now of people like debating this and it not being, you know, and it being a very real possibility, but also kind of like not necessarily happening. I don't think like delays are necessarily a bad thing. As when it comes to like, is the SEC or whoever gonna say it's a security and therefore like ultimately rule it out? If that ever were to happen, I think that'd be extremely bearish. But you know, as long as there's like this possibility of it, I think that often tends to set up a pump environment as well as anything.
Okay.
I wish I had more US specific regulatory information though.
Okay.
Which I don't.
Interesting stuff. I did see some tweets about from your SEC friend though, Sam. So I thought you might have had some additional clarity there.
Which SEC friend?
I don't know. I thought I saw a tweet from it.
Oh no. Well, my wife's best friend from law school is like one of the top 5 people at the SEC. Ooh. But she is extremly. I mean, she would never, ever tell me anything.
Yeah.
But she's a very good friend of ours, and she's a very, very good person, and she is not front running any of you guys. So that's at least one data point.
Makes a lot of sense. That's interesting. So I think, I guess maybe to kind of think about how you frame that is like, well, even in the event that it doesn't go through, crypto people will still think, well, okay, it's going to go through later anyway. Is that kind of the way to summarize it, Sam?
as long as it doesn't get ruled out, like
Got it.
if they come
Yes.
out and say this will never happen, like get over it, people, like that would be extremely bearish,
Okay.
you know. But
Yeah.
in the absence of that, like I think delays
Oh, good.
are whatever. Who cares? You know, it's like gives people more stuff to like kind of speculate about for a long time. Like, you know, the ultimate destruction in crypto is lack of attention. It's not uncertainty.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. Thanks so much for that perspective. Before we get to the headlines, Tiro, one final take on the ETH ETF. What are you thinking there?
Yeah, I'm kind of reading some information this morning, guys. Good morning, Modern Market family. So on the ETF with ETH, so basically what is going on they're saying the SEC radio silence on the Ethereum ETF is not a good sign. This is a quote from a Bloomberg analyst here. Basically, what the information on it is, he's saying the chances of an ETF approval is down to 35%. How he makes up 35%, I have no idea. I'm reading the article, and he provides absolutely no likelihood of how he got to that number. So it's a made up number.
Sure.
He says, beginning quote, the main thing is the fact that we're 73 days away from the final deadline, and there's been no contact or comments from the SEC to the issuers, and the issuers are basically the Ethereum users or the owners of the blockchain, I believe. So
Yeah.
basically, the SEC has to give comments, and then the issuers, who would be the Ethereum founders, would then have to work on correcting them. They may have to then refile and may want to have a couple of meetings, he says. It's kind of a long process, says this gentleman named Eric Balchunas, who
our
is
favorite ETF, Bloomberg
yes.
reporter.
So he's also saying that the SEC chair, Gary Gensler's stance on Ether could play a part as well, arguing that Gensler thinks of Ether as a security and may be unwilling to endure another round of political blowback, in quote unquote. He received following the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETFs and the SEC's court loss to Grayscale in August of 2023.
Got it. Interesting stuff, Tiro. Thanks so much for providing that extra stuff. Yeah, I think it's fair to. I mean, Eric Balchunas has obviously been very good on the Bitcoin ETF stuff. I did see a hell of a lot of pushback from the ETH maxis when he started to talk about ETH as like kind of the second fiddle to Bitcoin. I don't dispute that in some ways. I think the ETH people kind of reacted a bit too strongly there, personally. But I think from the procedural perspective, which is primarily what we're kind of looking to those people to try to report on, I think it's pretty fair that, you know, whatever they were hearing around the Bitcoin ETF about it moving forward and getting passed, like that did come to fruition from their kind of contacts and those conversations they were having. And I guess they're just putting out there that, look, the silence at the moment is indicative of maybe them not moving as fast forward on this, and that time for May for that approval might come a bit too soon. So I think it's completely fair. I do think it's something we want to keep on our radar, because obviously with the Bitcoin ETF, that was a huge catalyst for Bitcoin. I think that's almost definitively true. So we want to keep it on top of our radar as well. And we will continue to do that as we move forward. But I think we want to get into our first headline of the day, which is, let me just check what the actual headline was, because I was just going to say something to do with choosing rich. Bodoggos rise 30% to 9 Sol as Allnick continues virality with Dave Portnoy recognition. So just a quick summary for people who don't know. Nick is obviously the founder. I'm almost certain everyone knows this, but he's the founder of Bodoggos along with Pio and all the crew there who put on awesome daily content at the Nifty portal, and he's been going crazy viral. So I'm just going to get up his account on screen for in 1 second for the people who are watching in, and I'll just give you some idea of the type of engagement he's been getting. His clips have been getting like millions of views, and for even more entertainment purposes, every single one is getting community noted. Which is pretty hilarious. So this one, which he posted yesterday, good morning to the haters from my private movie theater. People genuinely think, I think Nick is this character and it's a real person, and they're responding over and over again. So this community note reads, "It is visible in the reflection of his sunglasses that the driver is wearing street clothes and not the formal attire that a private chauffeur would wear. He's clearly in a Lyft or an Uber." So that was a community note about him claiming that he was getting chauffeured around. People taking it very seriously and needing to correct that. "It is visible in the camera lens that my private movie theater is not in fact his, nor much private. It is a shared screening room within Brooklyn Point, doubles as a performance space, giving residents and their guests the opportunity to showcase their talents." People really taking it personal that he's clearly joking around, but they obviously can't tell. He got a retweet from the Barstool Sports president. That's pretty cool. Engagement off the chart. So two things I want to just set up for people so people know what's going on price action wise. Then I want to throw it to discussion. So Bodoggos were down at like between the 40th and 50th NFT collection on Solana. Not so long ago, I think the floor was about 4 to 5 ETH. It had dropped down to, and so it's ripped up. It is now the 4th collection trading on Solana. It's up 23% now. Floor price just underneath 9 Sol, and you can see from the price action just like pretty aggressive up at the moment. But on top of that, for people who don't know, and I'm sure that they do already, as Legendary alluded to at the start of the show, the Nick coin, which I believe has the ticker, I think the ticker is just Nick actually, although it's got some kind of I choose rich affiliation to the ticker. Nick is up to now, as we speak, a $44 million FDV. I don't know when Legendary bought in. I actually bought in as well because I just found Nick hilarious at some point early this morning. But this is pretty crazy. And I've got two questions. First, I want to hear people's actual reactions. And then I want to think from the kind of founder's perspective. And given that we run a media company as well, trying to get into the psychology of like, what would we do if someone created a coin of us and it starts running? Like, do you somehow feel responsible? But first, Legendary, just like your headline reactions to Nick's performance, and then the action on Bodoggos, and then the coin itself.
Headline reaction to the content is, I absolutely agree. People think this is real. Like, look at Reddit, look at other social media platforms, how they're commenting on that, or on TikTok. Personally, I was like, for me, it was getting too much of the like choose rich on the timeline. I was like, do I mute I choose rich, because it's like getting out of hand? But at the same time, I told you, like, it doesn't matter what I like or not. It's where the attention is, and you want and gotta trade the attention. So linking that to the question about the coin, what I find hilarious is the pump right now, because I said at the start of the show that I was like up to 37 Sol, and I'm up to more than 56, 57 Sol. So basically in the 40 minutes, I'm at another 20 Solana. It's quite hilarious to see that. Also, it's very interesting to have that from a maybe more analytical perspective, that comparison. You have that media company, and you have two products, essentially, if you want to put it like that. You have the Bodoggos, which they deeply, deeply care about, and which saw like a very, very decent pump. And then you have the meme play that is like absolutely ripping. And it kind of shows how much that virality is translating to tradable attention in forms of the meme coin pumping first and foremost. And then there is also like, that secondary effect of the collection also being up, which I'm not dismissing at all. It's like, a huge win and huge attention win for Bodoggos, which is great and which I absolutely love to see. But it's so interesting to note that it is first and foremost the meme coin that is pumping. And my last point, a bit of additional context. I don't know who of you all is like part of the community notes program. I am a part of it. And it's hilarious because if you're not a part of it, all you can see is the community note that reached consensus and that has been approved. You don't see the discussion and the declined community notes in the lead up to that. And I feel like this is the most hilarious place that I was able to enjoy the last couple of days. For example, on the discussion about the tea service at the Baccarat Hotel, they were like going back and forth. The tea service at the Baccarat Hotel is not $3,000. The post is misleading. $450 is the maximum price. And then someone was like counter arguing that no, it's not $450. It's up to $450. It's not even a $450 fixed price tag, but there's options how you can get there. And just seeing that discussion, how like basically 10 or 20 people are going back and forth on those points and how seriously they're taking it is just fucking entertaining to read.
That's interesting. Okay, before we get back to the thing, what's the structure? Do you know the structure of the community notes then? Like, who are those people going back and forth? Are they genuine community members? Are they affiliated with Twitter anyway? Like, how does that actually work? Do you know if you're part of it?
Yeah, I know. So basically how it works is you can write a community note yourself, or what you can do is you can rate a note as helpful, somewhat helpful, or not helpful. And you have categories for that, which is sources are not included, unreliable, sources do not support note, incorrect information, opinion or speculation, harassment, yada, 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 yada. And basically what it does is tracking your like performance on that. Are you voting on notes and are you improving them, or like voting notes as good notes that then actually get approved? And the same goes for the notes that you're writing out and putting out yourself. Obviously, if they are like flagged as helpful, that increases your score. And the more you participate in both the like writing as well as voting activities in the community notes program, you increase your tier. And increasing your tier just means that your opinion, it's not your opinion because it's not about opinion, but your notes and votes carry more weight than like fresh people who are joining the program. So you're building a trust score, to sum it up in 3 words.
Interesting. Okay, I think that's always interesting to know how the app functionally works, given that we spend so much time on it. So that's interesting perspective. Sammy, want to hear your thoughts on this as well. I can see Jack's hand is raised. Would love to hear his thoughts. What's your take on the kind of Nick explosion? Oh, one piece to clarify as well, though, Legendary, you mentioned like 2 products. Like, oh, you've got the NFTs and you've got the meme coin. Just to clarify, as far as I know, that this coin is not affiliated with the team. Like they have not put it out. But I guess you're just thinking in terms of like, well, the attention.
Exactly. But thank you for the clarification. That's an important one because I didn't want to insinuate it's like an official product by them.
Yeah, but it's funny that you say that because it's like, okay, they are doing well now. Do you go the official road and like buy the Bodoggos to kind of trade that attention and bet on them, or do you go down the route of the coin, which is clearly unofficial, but as we have found out, has way more liquidity often? So that is an interesting perspective. Would love to hear Sammy's thoughts on that, and maybe Jack can come in on that too in just a moment. Sammy.
Yeah, I think we've seen this before with the smalls, the Arbitrum collection. So there was like a community launch or like a random launch of the small token. Yeah. It was distributed for those that had kind of bridged that. And the team actually came out and announced that they're actually going to adopt that coin. Oh. Yeah, they officially announced it. So it's interesting that they took that stance, but I think I haven't seen that confirmation from the team. They've mentioned it and they've referred to it from the Bodoggos perspective, Nifty Portal. But I don't know. I think maybe it's something to do with the US. I don't know the specifics or the legalities around it. But yeah, it's interesting. I think the attention, the trading, the attention. I mean, I sold all my Nick token because I was like, okay, this might be dying down a little bit, but he keeps going. I actually switched some to Rich, and that absolutely tanked. So I was like, no, I'm out of this trade. But I do think that for me personally, I'm going to be observing how much they can sustain this attention on the timeline, and whether that correlates to the price pump, and just seeing if that actually that correlation is quite high.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because I mean, we're kind of talking about the token as if it's got something to do with them, and I wonder whether when someone else like launches something for like on your behalf almost, or related to you, but you had no agency over that, I wonder like what that actually feels like. Like for me, I would be dreading this. Like, okay, fine, it's funny for a little bit, but I would hate to feel tied to some token and think that I need to now continue performing. So this random token that I didn't even want to put out there into the world, like I need to sustain its price somehow from an attention perspective. So Legendary, I think you wanted to come in on that.
Yeah.
Then we'll go to Jack.
Because it's such a good point, because we actually have like precedents of that in the space with Beanie and the BGLD token as part of the Bloot ecosystem
yeah,
bullshit word as part of the Blood NFT degen collection, and someone created that BGLD token and sent Beanie a good amount of that. I don't know, 1%, 2%. Don't quote me on that, but a significant amount of that, which he never sold. But then also like that narrative started, that old chick that was already a narrative is his alt account, and our chick also got an allocation, and that got sold. And essentially it was so detrimental to his reputation back then that he, I mean, as a result of that, and also like what was going on with Blood, but that was like basically the final nail in the coffin that back then got him canceled. So it's not an easy spot to be in, even if you didn't like officially, create that. If that will lose people serious money, there is a serious risk to your reputation, because people will spin up and frame narratives in a way that might affect you, and you might not come out on top of it. So obviously hoping that this is not going to happen, but it is definitely a risk with that. And I wouldn't want to have someone do a legendary token and have that like weight associated to it.
Sounds kind of nice though. Sounds like a good ticker.
Stop it.
No, look, I completely agree. I would love, and when we're talking about this stuff, by the way, like I'm pretty sure maybe we all hold Bodoggos. I hold Bodoggos. I bought some of this token. We're in and out of this stuff, but this is obviously not financial advice. This token is even more risky than the Bodoggo play, which I feel like you could just buy officially as a form of support for the Nifty crew. Whereas this, I don't know. Like, I don't know where this goes up and down on attention. Jack, would love to hear your thoughts on this as one of the most significant Bodoggos holders I know, and I don't know, maybe a Nick token token holder too. What are your thoughts on the choose rich movement?
I choose rich every day, B-check. So very, very much on top of this movement, especially really like the idea of choosing rich whilst being significantly not rich. That's what really resonates with me.
That's cool.
I think one thing to address is I don't think this in any way damages Nick's reputation, just for the pure fact that this isn't a community token based on the Nifty side.
Sure.
And I think the way he's operating, he's doing it in exactly the right way, which is not addressing the token, addressing the meme behind the token that it was created off, which is to choose rich. So he never mentions that there's a token behind it with any of his viral content. He's just leaning in to what caused this sort of memeability, and I don't think that goes away. I do think Bodoggos sees significant upside on this, but I also think the token does as well. I've seen some really prominent NFT guys, like some really big Mooncat, for example. I've seen like Eric on the timeline saying this is the new whiff. It's as memeable as whiff. And like I can't argue that entirely. Like I do see like the way Nick's building this character around it, like it is like hugely memeable, especially with the narrative of choosing rich as people who basically just go all in on these meme coins because they don't actually want to do a day of honest work and then somehow get completely rich by it. And there's characters that Nick is being, like related to from the last cycle. He feels like he may be the main character, and he has exactly the experience that we would want to actually be able to do this in the right way. Love the community notes, love how everyone is just like completely losing their minds of what is 100% satire content. And I love being on the inside of this. It's some of the most fun I've had in the space. I do own a little bit of Nick as well. Sammy, if you'd listened to me about the rich token, I was in the Bodoggos, like they have like a Twitter like account like with like a bunch of Bodoggos in it, and I was yelling I threw such a tantrum about these guys trying to start a second token of the same meme, and was telling them how stupid they were and just to get back into Nick, and I will eat my hat if this doesn't happen. And that was like literally when it was at like a $5 million market cap. So 7x for people who listened to me, and a whole lot of tears for those who didn't. Choose rich.
Says the explicitly not rich person. Absolutely love those takes, Jack. Yeah, really good. Very interesting to think some of those through. I'm looking at the chart at the moment. It keeps going up actually. Bread, welcome to the stage, my friend. Great to have you back with us. What are your thoughts here on the kind of the Bodoggos side, but also the meme token side? Like, where would you go with this? Like, if you wanted to get in from a purely trader's perspective or investor's perspective, how would you think about it?
Oh Jesus, yeah! Don't ask me about trading. I'm not good at it. I do have Nick. I bought it like 3 days ago, and I'm still holding on to it. But my commentary is more, yeah, I'm just riding it now. Yeah. So I just wanted to comment because I know Legendary brought it forward. I do think it is something that's worth double clicking on. Just that, like, spinning up this stuff is so, like, the user experience on Solana, along with the ability to spin the stuff up, that is pretty closely tied to the actual meme itself. Right, like you get, like, I don't know, the user experience is pretty fluid right now. I just think this tokenized virality is basically what this stuff is. I think we're going to continue to see this do it at, like, such a profound rate for this cycle. I don't know. I feel like, because this is what people can relate to, right? This is what TikTokers can do. This is what normal people can do. They don't give a shit about consensus. They don't give a shit about, like, bridging and, like, like all this bullshit, right? What they understand is memes and virality, and the user experience of just trading this shit. I think we're just gonna. I'm a believer of the meme super cycle, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I think this is going to continue to happen more and more, and I'm trying to, like, really isolate this moment to see how it behaves, to see if it's something lasting, if it's something that just fades with the character itself, which I do think has lasting power. I think it's fucking hilarious, like, for every reason that Jack just said. But yeah, man, I'm really trying to just watch how this plays out, because I think it's going to be on repeat for the next 6 to 12 months.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, this virality thing, I can definitely see that happening. In my mind, I can't remember if this is definitely true, or maybe I was dreaming this up. But you know how Ansem's raising funds for the WIF token to go on the sphere, and there's a picture of, like, the dog with the hat there. I think someone transplanted, like, Nick's face onto the sphere as well, and saying, like, that should be the thing that happens as well. I was like, this market could get crazy. That could legitimately be one of the things.
Could you imagine that? Just choose Rich on that sphere. Oh my God, with that face. Oh, I would die.
With the blue sunglasses. Like, I think they're, like, that's becoming quite iconic at the moment. But look, we'll see. It's obviously, this stuff is more risky than even the other stuff we talk about. So do proceed with caution when you're playing around with those types of things. Conscious that we've only got 7 minutes left, so I want to hit the Web3 roundup to get people up to speed with what else has been happening around the space, and then get to the meme land news, and maybe touch on the blast thing if we can too, because I do think it's important. Maybe Legendary can give us a quick download on those things in just a little bit. So as always, this is from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. Number 1, NFTFi raises $6 million Series A round led by Placeholder. A lot of people announcing their raises right now. A lot of tokens incoming, I believe. Number 2, MetaStreet announces pudgy lending towers, which can earn up to 26% APR. I want to dig into those a little bit more. I think those are significantly more risky than the CryptoPunk lending towers, which MetaStreet's first product. So I definitely want to read those details a bit closer. Number 3, modular blockchain Eclipse announces a 50 million Series A led by Placeholder as well. Number 4, $900 million of USDE on Athena is now receiving 80% APY. We're talking about Blast increasing their APY on USDB. USDE on Athena is getting 80% APY. Remember, it's not, like, literally a stable coin. It's kind of a stable coin wrapped in a yield farm. So a yield strategy. Interesting stuff there. Next, FaZe Banks publishes first CTV vlog about his $3 million alien CryptoPunk trade. I watched all of that. That included Thread Guy and some of the other good characters from NFT Twitter in his house. Recommend watching. That was pretty fun. Number 2, Quantum Cat with Wizard Cape on auction at Sotheby's with the first bid at 50K. And finally, Lil Sappy's minted out for 77 ADA for quick 2x as secondary trades at 175. These are NFTs on Cardano. Maybe we're going to have to cover those as we move forward into the bull market as well. Legendary, that's the quick roundup. Do you want to get into, in fact, I've got the Meme Land tweet here. Do you want to take it, or shall I do a little bit of a summary of what's going on with Meme Land, then we can discuss?
Yeah, happy to take the meme land part of it. I think it's super interesting. They launched Stakeland, describing it as they as the first community-first social staking protocol built by a team obviously behind Memecoin, Memeland, and 9gag. And the point that they're making is you can stake meme and other crypto assets to get stakes. Stakes are burned for new token launches on Stakeland. And basically, they are also saying that they're one of the few, if not the only company in Web3 that has a strong history in Web2, had that great start in Web3. And they understand basically the difficulties of a great token launch. Also followed by saying, I think that's an important point, that it is a zero-fee platform that fosters a community-first equal distribution system. Pointing out again that Memeland is the #1 NFT ecosystem in Asia, among the top 10 in the world by market cap, Meme being a top 10 meme coin and a top 10 NFT-related coin with over 3 billion FTV, Meme having 1 million on-chain holders, being a top 10 ERC20 token by holder numbers, and over 4 million accounts that have participated in the meme farming campaign on X, as well as pointing out the fact that 9gag still sees more than 200 million monthly visitors on the website.
Okay, very interesting. Since we have NFT stats up with us, and this kind of all this information about Stakeland is public now, we'd love to hear his quick thoughts on just like maybe a key takeaway for what people might be interested from his perspective. Sam, are you able to speak to Stakeland?
I am, yeah. And I'm going to start putting out threads about why I joined Memeland and kind of all the things that are happening there. But I think that, you know, the company just has, I think, an extremely positive flywheel between having massive distribution of potential users. They have a lot of money. One of the reasons I joined this company is because they've never taken any ETH off chain. So every royalty they've ever made, every dollar they've ever made off a mint, like, is all still entirely on chain. I talked to our market makers the other day, and they say that we're the only project that's actually only bought their own token. Every other project, they say, like when the token pumps, is like calling them trying to sell. But Memeland has still never sold a single meme coin. So it's like a team that like really, I find quite honorable and believes in the project and believes in what they're doing. Also,
don't they actively stake that ETH too, Sam?
Say it again.
Don't they actively stake that? Like they're actually participating in Ethereum with their Ethereum, right?
Yeah, we own a bunch of, or they're I don't know if own is the right word, but have a bunch of validators that create yield. I will say that the treasury management is pretty terrible, which is one of the reasons I joined. The amount of USDC and ETH that's just sitting on chain, not earning anything, is kind of embarrassing. So that's something that I'm going to work on as I get ramped up. But at end of day, it's just a team that has a very good track record of building their own token. They got it on Binance. It was the best performing NFT token that Binance has ever had. It was actually, at the time, it was the best performing token that Binance had launched in a year. And the team is going to get more into helping other projects launch their token, using their distribution of hundreds of thousands of people through 9gag to help projects get access to tons of people, as opposed to a few influencers who might sell very quickly. This kind of can spread tokens among a wide group. All the users, I mean, the other thing that they have is, the reason that they haven't taken any ETH off chain is because the company is funded by 9gag, which is their internet business, which has been around for over 10 years and is very profitable. My email address is at 9gag. So they have another, like, this is the alternative revenue stream.
Interesting.
So, but through 9gag, there's a massive distribution. And I think there really is this very positive flywheel that can help other projects. And the idea behind 9gag is that instead of, like, with the advisory work we plan to do, instead of taking revenue the way that like most players do in the space who do advisory work, all the fees and revenue will go towards Stakeland. It'll go towards people who are staking the token. And the goal is just to find ways to reward people who are staking meme coin. I mean, it is a company that like sees everything is just about meme coin going up. That's the way that people get paid. And that's the view. So it's kind of interesting because on the one hand, it's a meme coin. Like, on the other hand, I actually think there's more potential utility than there is in most tokens. And meme or Stakeland is just creating a structure through which Memeland can figure out who to reward as the company brings different tokens to market. There are a few in the pipeline. There are more to come. We're going to work with different partners who are going to help Memeland get some of the best deals out there. So I don't know. I think overall this company has as good of a flywheel as I've seen in a long time. And and I think Stakeland is really just creating a way to reward people who stake the token via kind of the earnings that we make through the deals that we're going to be bringing to market.
Very, very interesting. Amazing insight there. Thank you so much, Sam. One of the things that is kind of make me thinking, so one follow-up question for me, but I didn't see this word used in any of the text, although I might have just missed it with my reading. But it kind of makes me think of a launch pad of sorts. I don't know whether that's the right framework to be using. Like, would it be fair to say that it's kind of using a launch pad type of mechanism?
Yeah, there's a launch pad. I don't know like the difference between like a launch pad and what like Horizon Labs does or Animoca. We're hiring our own market makers so that we can market make the tokens. Kind of really trying to do everything that like a top team would need. Like provide them the distribution, provide them the introductions to the top exchanges. Obviously have massive distribution, certainly within Asia, and we're building that up now outside of Asia. So really kind of be able to do everything that a new token project would want.
Okay, right. That's a helpful comparison to Horizon Labs as well, because that makes it a bit more concrete for me. Very interesting stuff. So much interesting stuff there. Thank you so much for that, Sam.
And I think like with Horizon Labs, project they take like 2% of the tokens. The fees for or some percent of the token. I don't know the specifics of their business model, but these businesses take a few. And in our case, the goal is literally for whatever fee would be just to go straight to Stakeland, just to reward people who are staking. And that's kind of the overall goal.
Amazing. And that actually additional detail that you mentioned of like the team just never taking any ETH, like never taking anything out and just betting it on meme and believing in it is I think quite powerful in this space. So
I think for Ray, he's like, I don't really understand the tax situation, so I'm just going to never take anything off. Like I'll figure it all out later. And in the meantime, like 9gag is such a profitable business. People in the space always talk about alternative revenue streams. Well, like I said, Memeland is the alternative revenue stream. 9gag has been around since 2009.
Got it.
It's a very profitable business. So it fully funds everything, and it allows this team to like not only not extract from the community, but like actually what the only transaction we've done on Memecoin as a company is when it went down to like 1.9 cents, the team actually bought a lot back. That's like I said, I was talking to our market maker and he was just laughing. He's like, I've never seen anything like this before, because it's always the opposite. But Ray is a unique guy. I will say that.
Amazing. Very, very interesting stuff. Thanks so much for that kind of deep knowledge, Sam. Really, really appreciate it. Legendary, we only have, well, we're already over in time, but I do think it's worth spending 2 minutes on just a quick download on the Blast increase in USDB yield. It was at 5% and now it's gone up to 15%. Do you want to be able to speak to it just quickly so people can get their heads around like how that's even possible, what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also shout out to Sam, because Sam and I had a conversation yesterday and he did a lot of research and also put out a fantastic long form post on X kind of explaining the situation. I think the key summary is that what was happening on chain is you could borrow DAI for 5%, sell that into USDC, lend on margin 5 for 16%, obviously starting to basically empty the capability of DAI being able to be redeemed because they were running out of stables. So basically they were down to 2% from 98%, as Sam had pointed out, which kind of led to a situation that they had to act, because otherwise there would have been a depegging of DAI, to my understanding. So they had to essentially close that opportunity and increase those interest rates. And the reason why we're seeing those interest rates being that high across the platform, across all the DeFi protocols, is simply a result of the fact that everyone is giga bullish and loves to leverage long on ETH or leverage long the market. And to do that, obviously, you need to borrow USDC and buy whatever token you think will go up. And that if a lot of people do that and there's a lot of demand for that, then the price for that, aka the interest rate to do that, goes up. And this is what we've seen playing out. So it's more a reaction out of the necessity of MakerDAO to do that and react to the market environment than, Blast pushing for a higher yield to reward the users or whatever. That's maybe a narrative that they would like to position or put forward, but that's not what has been going on in the background.
Cool. Amazing summary. Sorry about the little interlude of music there. Very, very helpful. If you are interested more, I was just sharing on screen tweet that Sam had published, which was very, very like kind of dives into the research a little bit and some of the more details. So definitely go and check that out if you want to figure that out a bit more. Go on, Sam.
I'll just jump in and put one word in. I think to put this as simply as possible, right now the yield on US dollars is out of control. And the reason for that is that people on the ecosystem, like anybody who moves money to crypto just wants to buy crypto.
Yeah.
So anybody who actually moves USDC into our ecosystem and brings it into the walls of crypto, it can lend it out to these people who just want crypto exposure. And you're seeing margin fi at 26%. I mean, this one, what was one called? You're seeing Athena like at 80%. Like the yields are out of control right now. So what was happening was everybody was taking DAI, which they could borrow for 5%, and earning 26% on margin fi. It's like a free money carry trade, and everyone was doing that. And DAI ran out. Like there was no more DAI. MakerDAI literally ran out. They were no longer able to give people their US dollars back. So they said, we cannot continue to lend you money at 5% when the entire crypto complex is paying 26%, or we will have nothing left. So they had to raise it to 15%. That is the quick story. How did this happen? It's because the crypto complex is at a place right now where people are paying 20 to 25% for US dollars. So DAI lending out at 5% became unsustainable. And there are other reasons to it, but I think the simplest version is just understanding that fact.
Fantastic. So helpful. Thanks, Sam. And again, if you want to read more of like the nuts and bolts of that, do go and read that post. Very, very helpful. Jack, we want to close, but you say that there is breaking news. Give it to us quick, strong, and then we're going to close out.
Thank you so much, B. Yeah, so Dave Pontonoy from Still Presidente, Barstool Sports, has just done a new post this morning saying, "We choose rich today" on DDTG, the Davy day trader, global. So this is like literally hundreds of millions of people will now see this. It's when Legendary said how his like 30 Sol had just randomly bumped up to 50. It was back off that news, like specifically this thing may go to Valhalla, NFA, but yeah, we may actually have all gotten rich by choosing rich. It was just a mentality. It was the whole time.
You just choose rich.
Okay, so I've got it up on screen for the people watching in, for the people who are not. Thanks so much for bringing that to our attention, Jack. We choose rich today on DDTG. What's DDTG?
DDTG is Davy's
Barstool Sports.
Yeah, but they have like a day trader bit. So they actually like it's a blog. It's like the biggest like blog for sports like in the US, to my knowledge. Like Brad could probably give a much better analysis of this, but they have like a trading section that's like a bit of a comedy side, which is Davy Day Trader Global. That's actually what it stands for. So yeah, they're literally like promoting this coin at this point, which is just wild.
Okay. If we want to see just quickly before we close what that has done to the price, if anything. Okay, hasn't really done anything, I don't think. If anything, it's just sold a little bit. As long as this is the up to date price. Let me just check. Where are we? So that tweet was okay. The tweet was half
12:27.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's essentially it did the big pump that Legendary announced sort of halfway through the show.
Got it. Okay, so then it went up to about 0.05, almost 5 cents, and it's down to maybe 4 cents something now. Interesting stuff. Things are going crazy. It's obviously meme coin season. NFTs are bleeding at the same time, but it's fun. That's why we're here. Enjoying the ride. Hope you're enjoying the ride too. We have gone way over today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much, as always, to my legendary co-hosts, Sammy and Legendary. And thank you to our speakers, NFT Stats, Sam, Bread, Jack, and everyone else who contributed. Thank you so much in the audience for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful day. We'll be back tomorrow, Wednesday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.